sky was never meant to burn like that.
When the first alien ships appeared over the horizon, no one believed they were real. People stood on rooftops taking photos, laughing, thinking it was another government experiment or some strange meteor show. But when the first light cut through the clouds and entire cities went dark, the laughter stopped. Commander Ryan Hale was stationed in the western desert with his unit when the alarms began. He had seen war before, but never like this. There were no warnings, no declarations, only a strange silence followed by chaos. Within minutes, communication lines fell. Drones stopped responding and satellites went blind. The soldiers gathered near the edge of their camp, watching bright shapes moving far in the sky. They weren't planes. They moved too smoothly, too silently. The desert wind carried the smell of burning metal, and soon the horizon lit up like a dying sun. Everyone inside the vehicles, Ryan shouted. His voice was calm but sharp enough to cut through fear. His men trusted him. They always had. But even he couldn't hide the unease in his eyes. The enemy came fast. They weren't what anyone expected. Not monstrous beasts, not glowing demons. They were tall, slender beings wrapped in silver-like armor that seemed alive. Their faces were covered by smooth masks, and they spoke in low, humming tones that no translator could understand. The first wave of attack was silent and deadly. Machines, unlike any human design, sliced through tanks like paper. Energy beams scorched the sand into glass. Ryan's team scattered across the wreckage, fighting with everything they had. Hours turned to days. Every battle ended the same way, humans retreating, aliens advancing. But something strange happened in the fourth week of the invasion. The attack stopped. It wasn't peace, not really. It felt like the storm holding its breath. Ryan led a small group to scout the nearby canyon where they had lost contact with another unit. The air was heavy with dust and smoke. As they moved deeper into the canyon, they found something unexpected. Wreckage of alien ships still burning. There were bodies too. Not human. Not like any species they knew. Blue-skinned soldiers lay scattered across the rocks, armor cracked, strange weapons still glowing faintly. And among them were two figures that looked different. They weren't soldiers. They were young, slender, and still breathing. One had skin the color of deep ocean, marked with faint glowing lines. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, showing an unnatural light. The other had pale silver skin and long white hair that shimmered even in the dust. Ryan lowered his weapon slowly. "They're alive," he said. Corporal Jenkins looked uncertain. "Sir, are we sure that's a good thing?" Ryan didn't answer. He crouched beside them, checking their wounds. They were injured, frightened, and barely conscious. When one of them whispered something in a soft, melodic voice, it didn't sound like a threat, it sounded like a plea. They brought the two alien girls back to the camp. Some soldiers wanted to turn them over to command immediately. Others argued they should be left behind. Ryan ignored them all. He couldn't explain why, but something about those girls felt important, like they didn't belong to the invaders who had destroyed everything. At night, when the desert grew cold, the blue-skinned girl opened her eyes again. She looked at Ryan and whispered one word in broken English. "Help." It was enough to change everything. Over the next few days, strange things began happening. The alien machines that had roamed the skies stopped attacking the region. Surveillance drones caught movement in orbit, but the ships were retreating. Slowly, like something had pulled them back. Rumors spread through the human camps. Stories of alien defectors, of hidden rebellions among the invaders. But Ryan kept the truth hidden. The two alien girls had recovered faster than anyone expected, and they spoke more English every day. They said they weren't part of the invasion. They had been prisoners, forced to fight. Their own people were divided. Some wanted peace, others wanted control. Ryan believed them. Maybe he shouldn't have. On the seventh night, the base was attacked again. But this time it wasn't alien ships. It was human aircraft, sent by command. "Commander Hale," the message came through the radio. "You are ordered to surrender the alien captives immediately." Ryan looked at the two girls sitting quietly by the fire. The blue one watched him with calm eyes. The white-haired one seemed frightened. Outside, engines roared closer. He realized the truth then. The war wasn't just between humans and aliens. It was about control, secrets, and choices. And soon, he would have to make the hardest choice of all. The camp was silent that night. except for the hum of generators and the soft crackle of the fire. Commander Ryan Hale couldn't sleep. He sat near the two alien girls, watching them from the shadows. The blue one was called Lyra, and the white-haired one had said her name softly, Seren. Both looked fragile, yet there was something powerful in their eyes, something that made Ryan uneasy and curious at the same time. They hadn't spoken much, only a few broken words. Still, Ryan could sense they understood more than they let on. Every time he tried to ask where they came from, they looked at each other first, as if afraid the truth might bring more pain. At dawn, a dust storm rolled in from the east. The wind screamed against the tents, tearing through cables and flags. Soldiers ran to secure the perimeter, shouting over the roaring air. Through the storm, Ryan saw shapes, blurry outlines moving fast. "Positions," he shouted. "Check your fire, we don't know who they are." When the wind cleared for a moment, Ryan saw three small figures stumbling through the dust. Lyra, Serene, and someone else. He ran forward, grabbing them before the wind threw them down again. The third figure was a dying alien soldier, badly burned, armor cracked open. Lyra held on to him, crying out words Ryan didn't understand. The soldier gasped, his eyes glowing faintly. He looked at Ryan for a brief second and spoke something that made Lyra flinch. Then his body turned still. Seren wiped her tears and said in quiet English, he said, "They know where we are." Moments later, the sound of engines filled the air. Not human machines, alien ones. Sleek black shapes flew low over the desert, scanning the area. Ryan's soldiers aimed their rifles, but he held up a hand. "No firing unless they attack." The ship circled once, then vanished into the storm again. For now, they were safe, but Ryan could tell that wouldn't last. When night fell again, Lyra and Serene finally spoke more. They sat across from Ryan, faces lit by firelight. Lyra's voice was soft but steady. "Our people divided long ago," she said. "Some serve the high command. Others fight for freedom. We were taken because we refused." Ryan listened carefully. "And the ones attacking Earth?" "Not all of us wanted this war," Seren whispered. "It was meant to be quick, show of power. But humans fought harder than expected. The leaders. They fear what they can't control." Ryan leaned forward. "So what happens now? Why are they still after you?" Lyra's glowing eyes met his. "Because we know something they want hidden." Before Ryan could ask more, the camp alarms blared again. A convoy was approaching, human, not alien. Military insignias glowed under the floodlights. The lead vehicle stopped just outside the barrier, and a group of armed soldiers stepped out. The officer in front was tall, with cold eyes and a polished badge, Colonel Briggs, Ryan's superior. "Commander Hale," he said, voice sharp. "You've got something that belongs to Central Command." Ryan didn't move. "They're under my protection," Briggs smirked. "Protection from what?" "They're the reason we're at war." "Orders are clear. Turn them over." Lyra stepped closer to Ryan, trembling. Serene reached for his arm. "Please. They'll kill us." Ryan looked between Briggs and the girls. His men waited behind him, unsure who to follow. For a long moment, no one spoke. The wind carried only the low hum of engines and distant thunder. "I'm not handing them over," Ryan finally said. Briggs's face darkened. "You're making a mistake, Hale. You think those things care about you? About this planet?" Ryan's hand tightened on his rifle. "They're not things, and they're not the enemy anymore." Briggs nodded to his men. "Arrest him." Before they could move, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Lights flickered and a massive shape rose on the horizon. A towering alien walker, glowing red, heading straight toward the camp. Everyone turned toward the noise. The walker's weapons powered up and a storm of light filled the sky. Soldiers ran for cover. Ryan grabbed Lyra and Serene and pulled them behind the armored vehicle. "Stay down," he shouted. Explosions tore through the camp. Fire lit up the night. Briggs's men scattered, shouting commands. Ryan fired at the glowing walker, but his bullets vanished against its shield. Lyra raised her hand suddenly, eyes glowing bright blue. A wave of energy burst from her palms, hitting the walker. Its lights flickered and it staggered backward. Serene joined her, her hands glowing white, and together they pushed until the machine exploded in a ball of light. Silence followed. Only the sound of the wind and the crackle of burning metal remained. Ryan stared at them, speechless. What did you just do?" Lyra looked exhausted, her glow fading. "We ended it. For now." Briggs stumbled out from behind a vehicle, his face pale. You don't understand what you've done. Central Command will never let you keep them. Ryan turned to him, his expression hard. Then they'll have to come through me. He knew there was no turning back now. The camp was gone by morning. What was left were smoking vehicles, broken tents, and silent radios. Commander Ryan Hale stood among the ruins, watching the horizon glow faintly from the fires that still burned far away. They had survived the night, but there was no safety now. He turned toward the two alien girls, Lyra and Seren, who sat beside a wrecked truck. They looked exhausted but calm. The blue glow in Lyra's skin had dimmed, and Serene's silver hair was tangled with dust. Ryan's soldiers were gone, scattered, captured, or dead. Only a few had stayed with him, loyal to the end. Corporal Jenkins walked up beside him. "Sir, Central Command just sent a message through the backup channel," he said. "They've declared you rogue. Orders are to bring you in, dead or alive." Ryan didn't even flinch. Then we go dark. He led the small group across the desert before sunrise. They avoided main routes, sticking to the canyons and old mining tunnels. Every few hours they stopped to rest. Lyra helped treat the wounded with strange healing gel from her armor, and Seren repaired the broken drone with nothing but her bare hands and a soft hum. Ryan watched her work. "How do you do that?" Seren smiled faintly. "It listens to me. Machines are simple. They obey." That answer stayed with him longer than it should have. After 2 days of hiding, they reached an abandoned airfield, a relic from before the war. The hangar was half buried in sand, but it still offered shelter. Inside, Ryan found old fuel drums, rusted tools, and one broken aircraft that might still fly with luck. Lyra touched the metal hull. "This could take us to the ridge if we fix it?" Ryan nodded. "Then we fix it." While they worked, Ryan asked the question that had been burning in his mind. "You said you know something the others want hidden. What is it?" Lyra hesitated. Her glowing eyes flickered with emotion. "Our leaders lied to us. The invasion wasn't meant to conquer. It was meant to destroy evidence. Evidence of what? Of the truth," Seren said softly. "Your planet wasn't chosen at random. Humans were part of our history once." "Long ago," Ryan frowned. "That's impossible." Lyra shook her head. "Not impossible, forgotten." Before he could ask more, a sound broke through the still air, a sharp electronic ping. The radar screen on the control panel lit up. Jenkins cursed. "We've got company, 2 drones closing fast." Ryan's mind raced. "Hide the girls now!" He grabbed his rifle and moved toward the entrance, crouching behind a crate. The buzzing of engines grew louder. Twin drones swooped down, scanning the area with red lights. One of them spotted movement. It fired. The wall exploded, sending dust and metal flying. Ryan rolled to the side and fired back, hitting the drone's wing. It spiraled down, crashing into the sand. The second one turned toward the hangar, charging its cannon. Before it could fire, a bright flash filled the air. Lyra stepped out from behind the crates, eyes glowing fiercely. She raised her hand and a pulse of blue light burst outward. The drone froze in midair, its lights flickering, then fell lifeless to the ground. Seren ran forward and placed her hand on its hull. The machine came back to life, but this time it glowed white instead of red. "It will follow us now," she said quietly. "It's ours." Ryan stared at her in disbelief. "You just reprogrammed an alien weapon with your hands." Seren looked at him with calm eyes. "No, I just asked it to listen." That night, as the wind howled outside the hangar, Ryan couldn't sleep again. He sat near the entrance, watching the stars. Lyra came and sat beside him. "You should rest," she said. "So should you," he replied with a faint smile. "You saved our lives today." Lyra's expression softened. "You saved ours first." There was silence between them for a moment. The stars reflected in her glowing eyes, and Ryan realized how human she looked when she smiled. "Your people will come for you again," he said quietly. She nodded. "And yours will come for you. Then we're all running from someone." Lyra looked at him, her voice gentle. "Maybe we're running toward something instead." Before Ryan could answer, Serene appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Someone's coming," she said. "Not from the sky. From below." Ryan stood quickly. The ground trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. An old elevator at the far end of the hangar began to rise slowly, its gears groaning. Light spilled out from the cracks. Ryan raised his rifle. "Get behind me." When the doors opened, the light was blinding. Then a shadow stepped out. Tall, human. wearing a black uniform marked with the insignia of Central Command. Ryan lowered his weapon slightly, his breath catching. It was Captain Miller, his old friend, the man who once saved his life in another war. "Ryan," Miller said, his voice calm but cold. "You've got something I need to take off your hands." Ryan didn't move. "You mean them?" Miller nodded. "And whatever secret they're hiding. Hand them over, and maybe we both live to see tomorrow." Ryan felt the weight of every choice pressing down on him. The war, the lies, the two alien girls who had trusted him. This time there would be no orders to follow, only a decision that could change everything. Captain Miller stepped fully out of the elevator, the light fading behind him. His boots crunched on the dusty floor. His uniform was clean, his face half hidden behind a visor that reflected the blue firelight. Ryan Hale stood still, his rifle low but ready. Behind him, Lyra and Seren stayed close, silent shadows watching everything. "It's been a long time," Miller said quietly. "You picked a bad side to stand on." Ryan shook his head. "I didn't pick sides. I picked people who needed help." Miller gave a short laugh. "That's the problem, old friend. You always think you can save everyone." He walked closer. The soldiers behind him spread out, rifles raised. They wore the same Central Command insignia that Ryan once did. For a moment it felt like the old days, except now they were enemies. Lyra whispered softly, "He's not here to talk." Ryan didn't answer. He knew she was right. Miller stopped just a few meters away. "The girls you're hiding, they're not refugees, Ryan. They're prototypes, weapons. You have no idea what they really are." Serene stepped forward, her silver hair catching the firelight. "We're not weapons," she said calmly. "We were born. We weren't made." Miller's visor tilted slightly. "Cute story. Command says otherwise." Ryan frowned. "Command lies." "You know it," Miller sighed. "You always were stubborn. But this time it's not just your career on the line. You're protecting alien technology that could wipe out what's left of our world." Before Ryan could speak, Lyra took a step forward. Her eyes glowed faintly. "You don't understand. We're the key to stopping it. The war isn't over, it's spreading. Your leaders think they can control it, but they're wrong." The air grew tense. Miller lowered his weapon slightly, confusion flickering across his face. "Stop what?" "The hive," Seren whispered. "A machine consciousness created by our ancestors. It woke centuries ago. It wants every living thing under its control. That's why the High Command attacked your planet, to destroy the hive's signal hidden here. But they failed." Ryan stared at her, shocked. "You mean Earth's not the target, it's the shield?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. Your planet's core carries the same frequency that blocks the hive's spread. If the hive wins, no world, human or alien, will ever be free again." Miller stood frozen for a moment. The wind outside howled through the cracks in the hangar. Finally, he spoke. "You expect me to believe that?" Ryan lowered his gun. "Look at them, Miller. They saved us. They stopped an entire alien walker by themselves. They could have killed us, but they didn't." Miller's jaw tightened. "Even if what they're saying is true, Command won't care. They'll want to control it. And if you keep them hidden, they'll burn everything to get them back." He turned slightly, motioning to his men. "Last chance, Ryan, step aside." Ryan shook his head. "You'll have to go through me." For a heartbeat, no one moved. The silence was so heavy that even the wind outside seemed to stop. Then Miller whispered almost sadly, "You really haven't changed." A flash of light exploded. Gunfire filled the air. Ryan dove behind a crate, firing back. Sparks flew across the floor as bullets ricocheted off metal. The sound was deafening. Seren ran to cover, pulling Lyra down with her. "We can't fight them all." Lyra closed her eyes, hands glowing. "We don't have to," the air shimmered. A blue pulse swept through the hangar, knocking out lights, electronics, and weapons. The soldiers' rifles went dark. Miller's visor flickered, then turned black. Ryan stood, aiming his gun at Miller. "It's over," but Miller only smiled. "No, it's not." He pressed something on his wrist. Outside, engines roared. Dozens of drones appeared in the night sky, surrounding the airfield with red lights. Lyra's glow dimmed. "He called reinforcements." Ryan grabbed her arm. "We need to move, now." Serene pointed toward the old aircraft they'd been repairing. "That's our only way out." The group ran for the hangar doors as gunfire erupted again. Drones blasted holes through the walls. Dust and fire filled the air. Jenkins helped push the aircraft forward while Seren jumped inside, powering up the controls. Miller shouted. You can't run forever, Ryan. You're fighting the wrong war. Ryan looked back at him once. Maybe, but at least I'm fighting for something real. The engines roared to life. The plane lifted off just as explosions tore through the hangar floor. Sand and debris chased them into the night sky. From above, the desert looked endless, dark waves stretching to the horizon, glowing faintly under the twin moons. Lyra sat behind Ryan, trembling but smiling faintly. You saved us again. Ryan didn't answer. His eyes were fixed ahead where the mountains met the stars. Seren looked down at the glowing radar. They're still tracking us. We can't outrun them for long. Ryan took a deep breath. Then we'll find somewhere they can't follow. Lyra tilted her head. Where? He looked at her and said quietly, where the war began. The plane flew into the darkness, leaving the burning airfield behind. Below, Miller watched them disappear, his expression hidden behind his cracked visor. He raised his wrist communicator. Command, this is Captain Miller. They're heading toward the origin zone, a cold voice replied through static. Then they're walking right into our hands. The aircraft groaned as it cut through the clouds, its old engine screaming against the wind. Sparks flickered on the dashboard and warning lights blinked red across the controls. The desert below stretched endlessly, glowing faintly under the twin moons. Commander Ryan Hale held the control stick tight. His eyes were fixed ahead, scanning for any sign of safety. Behind him, Lyra and Seren sat quietly. The girls looked exhausted, but their strange, soft light still glowed through the cabin. Serene broke the silence first. How far? Ryan shook his head. Not far. The maps call it the origin zone. Nobody goes there anymore. Too much radiation, too many storms? Lyra leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. That's where it began. The first signal. Ryan glanced at her. The hive? She nodded slowly. Yes. Our ancestors hid something deep under your planet, something the hive was searching for. They thought it was lost, but now, it's awake again. The words hung in the air like ice. A sudden jolt shook the aircraft. A burst of light flashed outside the window. Seren looked at the radar. They've found us. 2 drones closing fast. Ryan cursed under his breath and pulled the aircraft lower. The engines roared as they dove through the canyons. Bright beams sliced past them, lighting up the rocks. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing. Keep steady, she shouted. She raised her hands and a shimmering blue barrier flickered outside the craft. One of the drones fired again, but the beam bounced harmlessly off the shield, scattering like light and water. Seren gripped the control panel. I can overload the engines for a short burst. Ryan nodded. Do it. The aircraft trembled as energy surged through its systems. For a moment it felt like they were flying through lightning itself. The drones fell behind, unable to match the sudden speed. Then silence. They had escaped. For now, the mountains rose ahead, black and jagged. Beyond them, a storm swirled like a giant whirlpool of clouds. The radar flickered with static. Seren whispered, That's it. The origin zone. Ryan guided the aircraft through the storm. Rain turned to glowing dust and lightning danced across the horizon in strange colors. Green, purple, blue. The air itself seemed alive. As they descended, the ground opened into a massive crater. At its center stood something impossible. An enormous metallic structure buried deep within the earth. It pulsed with faint white light, ancient and silent. They landed near the edge of the crater. The moment they stepped out, the air hummed softly like the planet was whispering. Ryan looked around. What is this place? Lyra stepped forward, her eyes reflecting the glow. This is where our people first touched your world. The connection between our kind and yours began here. Seren knelt beside a strange pillar half buried in the sand. She brushed away the dust, revealing glowing symbols that shifted like living things. It's alive, she whispered. It's part of the hive's core, but disconnected. It's sleeping. Ryan frowned. Then why come here? Lyra turned to him. Because it's waking up again. And when it does, it will send a signal that will destroy everything. Before Ryan could answer, the ground trembled. Rocks tumbled down the crater walls. A deep rumble echoed through the air. Seren looked at the sky. They're here. Ryan followed her gaze. Dark shapes were descending. Ships sleek and sharp, marked with the symbols of both Alien High Command and Central Command. The humans and aliens had joined forces to hunt them. Lyra's voice trembled. They think if they destroy this place, the hive will die. But if they attack, it will wake instead. Ryan's mind raced. Then we have to stop them before they fire. Seren turned to him, her silver eyes glowing brighter. There's one way. We can connect to the core and shut it down from inside, but we'll need your help to reach it. Ryan didn't hesitate. Tell me what to do. They ran down into the crater, lightning flashing around them. The air was thick with energy, and every step felt heavier. Sparks danced across the rocks as if the ground itself was alive. At the base of the crater, a massive door waited, smooth, metallic, and covered in glowing lines. Serene placed her hand on it, and the lights shifted, recognizing her touch. The door opened with a deep, resonant sound. Inside was a vast chamber filled with floating light. The walls pulsed like a living heart, and in the center hovered a crystalline core the size of a building. This is it, Lyra whispered. The hive's heart fragment. Ryan stepped forward. And this thing is buried inside Earth? Seren nodded. Hidden to protect both our species. The ground shook again. Explosions echoed from above. The combined fleet had arrived. Ryan looked up. They're going to fire any second, Lyra turned to him. If they attack, everything ends. The hive will wake fully, and nothing will stop it. Seren reached for Ryan's hand. You have to decide, Commander. Destroy it or trust us to stop it. Ryan looked between them. Two alien girls, both glowing, both ready to risk everything for a planet that wasn't even theirs. He took a deep breath. Do it, I'll hold them off. Lyra's eyes softened. You'll die. Ryan gave a faint smile. Not if you're fast. Above them, thunder cracked. The first bombardment began. Ryan turned and ran toward the entrance, raising his rifle as soldiers and drones descended through the storm. Behind him, Lyra and Seren stepped into the light of the core. As the walls began to glow brighter, Lyra whispered something Ryan couldn't hear, words carried away by the roar of battle. The storm above the crater roared like an angry sea. Lightning cracked across the dark sky, and the air shimmered with power. Commander Ryan Hale ran up the slope, the wind tearing at his uniform. Behind him, deep inside the crater, Lyra and Seren were inside the ancient core, trying to stop what could end two worlds. Every breath burned. Every step felt heavier. The ground shook beneath his boots as the first human and alien ships opened fire. Explosions ripped across the cliffs, sending waves of dust into the air. Ryan stopped at the ridge and took cover behind a rock. Through the smoke, he saw the enemy forces moving in. Human soldiers mixed with alien troopers, united by fear and lies. Commander Hale, someone shouted through a loudspeaker. Stand down. You can't stop this. Ryan wiped the sweat and dust from his face. His voice came out low but steady. Watch me. He aimed his rifle and fired. The first shot hit a drone, sending it crashing into the sand. The second burst scattered a group of soldiers trying to flank the crater. He knew he couldn't hold them forever, but he didn't need forever. Just enough time for the girls to finish their work. Inside the chamber, Lyra stood before the crystal heart of the hive. Its light pulsed faster, brighter. The sound was no longer a hum. It was a voice, deep and mechanical, whispering in 1,000 tones at once. Connect. Merge. Evolve. Seren pressed her hands to the glowing surface. It's trying to reach me, she said softly. It knows we're here. Lyra looked at her sister in fear. Don't listen. It will use your mind. Seren shook her head. We can't shut it down without touching it. We have to connect on both of us. The light spread around them, wrapping their bodies in soft radiance. Their forms shimmered, half human, half energy. The hive's voice grew louder. I was born from you, and you from me. You cannot destroy your own creation. Lyra's voice trembled. We are not your creation. We are what you failed to become. The walls began to crack with power. The core pulsed like a heartbeat. Outside, Ryan saw a beam of light shoot up from the crater, piercing the clouds. He shielded his eyes. The wind grew so strong it nearly threw him off his feet. The soldiers stopped firing, staring up at the sky as the beam turned the storm into a swirl of blue and silver light. Miller's voice came from the comms again, broken by static. Ryan, what have you done? Ryan pressed the radio. Something you should have done a long time ago. Trust. He turned back toward the crater, watching the impossible happen. Inside, Lyra and Seren were now floating above the core, their hands joined. The light surrounded them completely. Memories flowed between them. of their world, of the war, of humans who had once fought beside their kind thousands of years ago. Then, slowly, they began to fade. Seren looked at Lyra, smiling through tears. "It's working. The hive is sleeping again." Lyra's voice was faint. "And so are we." "No," Lyra whispered to herself, shaking her head as if she could resist the pull.
"Ryan needs us." Seren touched her cheek gently.
"He'll live because of us." A blinding flash filled the chamber. Outside, the beam vanished. The storm began to clear, revealing a calm silver sky. The ground stopped shaking. The enemy ships hovered for a moment, then turned away, engines fading into the distance. The battle was over. Ryan stumbled down the slope, coughing through the dust. The crater was quiet now, the air still humming with fading energy. He reached the bottom, his boots sinking into the soft sand. The great metal door to the core lay open, silent, scorched, but still glowing faintly. He stepped inside. The chamber was empty. The massive crystal that once pulsed with power was now dull like cold glass. "Lyra? Seren?" he called softly. His voice echoed back, hollow and lonely. He searched the floor and found something small. 2 glowing pendants lying side by side, one blue, one white. He picked them up, closing his hand around them. For a long time, he just stood there, the weight of silence pressing on him. Then he whispered, "You did it." When he walked out of the crater, the sun was rising. The desert stretched before him, golden and endless. The war was over, but the world would never be the same. Later, reports would say that Commander Ryan Hale disappeared that day. Some claimed he died in the storm. Others said he vanished with the alien girls. But years later, travelers crossing the wasteland sometimes spoke of a blue light that moved across the dunes at night. 2 figures walking beside a man in old military armor. They never harmed anyone. They only watched the stars. And every time lightning flashed across the desert, people said you could still hear a voice in the wind, calm, human, and proud. We don't choose between them. We protect them both.